you know.
Yeah, I could see it very clearly on here.
Yeah.
Oh, Oregon. We're live. Buttons up. Everybody's button up. Okay. Everybody here that's supposed to participate? Ms. Castro? Okay. Good evening, everyone. My name is Virginia Harger. Good evening, everyone. My name is Virginia Harger. I'm chairperson of the Shelton Planning and Zoning Commission. Today is Wednesday, April 19th, and the special meeting of the commission being conducted in the Shelton City Hall Auditorium via Zoom and through a phone link is hereby called to order. This meeting may be also viewed live and remotely on YouTube. Would everyone please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance, and I invite those participating remotely to do the same. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, God, indivisible,
and justice for all.
Thank you, everyone. Okay, starting with a roll call, please verbally indicate you're present when the name is called. Commissioner Kelly.
Present.
Commissioner Lascos.
Present.
Commissioner Motto. Here. Alternate Commissioner Donato.
Present.
Commissioner Tiki.
Present.
Myself, Commissioner Harger. Mr. Rossetti, our administrator. No. Okay. Ms. Castro, our assistant administrator. Present. Mr. Panico, our consultant.
Here.
Ms. Vernassos, our recording secretary.
Present.
And Ms. Charbonneau, our stenographer.
Present.
You, and for the record, Commissioner Parkins and alternate Commissioner Onofrio are not available for this evening's meeting. Alternate Commissioner Donato, you're being seated for Commissioner Parkins. And could you just acknowledge that?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. A couple of points before continuing with today's agenda. Ms. Castro will act as the Zoom meeting host. Commissioners will be able to make comments throughout the meeting, and the chair asks that you please identify yourself and wait to be recognized. To make sure we're not all speaking over each other, to make sure our recording secretary is clear as to who is speaking. On this evening's agenda, we have a continuation of the public hearing. This is the protocol. Ms. Castro will indicate if any written comments were received from members of the public no later than 24 hours before the start of this evening's meeting. Read into the record. Material has been submitted since the last time this application was on the agenda, which was March 15th. The applicant and/or his associates can comment on it. The commission can ask questions during the applicant's comments or at the conclusion of the comments, and the applicant and/or associates can answer commission questions at the time they are presented or at the conclusion of the applicant's comments. If new material has been strike that, the applicant's attorney and/or associates will be given the opportunity to address any comments or questions from the public after the last person from the public has been given the opportunity to speak. If the commission feels further information is needed from the applicant, the chair will ask for a motion to continue the public hearing. If a public hearing does remain open, the commission is not allowed to make any public comment, discuss any part of the applicant's and/or his associate's presentation, or receive any additional information from anyone. If the commission feels the applicant and/or his associates have answered all questions, have addressed all concerns from the commission and/or public, chair will ask for a motion to close the public hearing. The commission can choose to discuss the application immediately following the close of the public hearing or at an upcoming commission meeting. In either case, the commission will be asked by the chair on how it wants to proceed. There are members of the public who choose to speak at the point in the public hearing when the chair calls for public comment. The public is asked to note the following. Speaker order is as follows. Elected officials of the city of Shelton, those attending in person, those participating via Zoom, and those participating via phone. Speakers will be allowed 5 minutes to present their comments. If there is anyone in the auditorium that would like to speak during the public portion, they need to indicate their name and address on the sign-up sheet. At the time indicated by the chair, those participating via Zoom will need to use Zoom's raise your hand feature to be identified. Those participating via phone will need to dial *9 on their phone. After you're identified by Ms. Castro, please state and spell your name and your address to assist the recording secretary and stenographer. When the minutes and transcript of the public hearing are being prepared, please direct your comments and the questions to the commission only, not to the applicant and/or his associates. Comments from the public should address specific criteria of the zoning regs, the merits of the application, and be new information, not a repeat of comments previously presented. Members of the public are expected to practice appropriate etiquette by being quiet, observant, and respectful. This public hearing continuation is for application 2228 Dominic Thomas for Recar LLC, Miamis Holdings LLC at 704, 712, 722, and 726 River Road, Assessors Map 22, lots 1 and 2, and Map 32, lots 16 and 17. For modification to PDD number 66 and final site development plans to increase the size of the PDD from 8.645 acres to 11.981 acres. Relocate and increase the size of a previously approved restaurant and event facility at a 7,800 square foot office building. Reduce the 102 previously approved apartments to 90 apartments and add 35 condominium units to the existing PDD site. We accepted this application for review on November 9th of 2022. On the city's website are the application for modification of PDD number 66, the second amended statement of uses and standards, the original and revised site development plans, architectural plans, artist renderings, landscape plan, traffic report, fire marshal's report, original and revised renderings, the application for review of coastal site plans, and a project narrative, a site plan with an indication of floodplains and floodways, high water lines, coastal jurisdiction lines, the estuarine embayment line, and FEMA zones, and a letter dated March 30th, 2023 from Iroquois Pipeline. At the opening of the public hearing on January 25th, the commission heard an explanation about the revised site plan, the building design, and a traffic report. No members of the public spoke. At the March 15th continuation, the project's engineer reviewed revisions made to the parking lot, raised islands in response to the fire marshal's comments that there was insufficient space for fire apparatus, a new connection between 2 parking areas for better circulation of fire apparatus, plans to pave the gravel sidewalk from the crosswalk to the restaurant. Mr. Crowell, the applicant, indicated the width of the curb cuts from River Road was sufficient. Mr. Panico indicated any change to the curb cuts would need approval from the Department of Transportation. The project architect reviewed the change to the interior lobby of the medical restaurant building, and there was discussion about the number of parking spaces for the condos and rowing club building. Attorney Thomas indicated this project did not have any affordable housing units. Mr. Crowell indicated he would be meeting with the Iroquois right-of-way manager regarding the utility easement. One member of the public spoke and asked about the need for a revised coastal area management study if the water-dependent use should be increased, that the city's right-of-way for public access had been relinquished by the city, and if there were plans to preserve the house at 704 River Road as it had some historical value. Mr. Crowell indicated he would confirm whether or not the CAM would need to be revisited, as the auto switch property had increased the property size of the application. And Commissioner Parkins asked that any verification be submitted in writing. Ms. Castro, were there any other reports, materials, or correspondence received within the time period for this application, but not yet posted to the city's website that need to be acknowledged for the record? Okay, all right, so I'm going to give the applicant the floor. And if the applicant could review the new material that appears on the city's website, I would appreciate it. So is that Attorney Thomas?
It's Attorney Thomas, Conan Thomas, 315 Main Street, Derby, Connecticut, representing the applicant. I will state that Andrew Kuzmich from Redness and Mead is as an attendee, needs to be admitted. And I think Joseph Mingalello is also available in the waiting area. I'm not sure, but Andrew Kuzmich needs to be admitted.
Okay,
Thank you.
so Attorney
So
Thomas, you want to start with that letter that's dated March 30th and explain what that's all about? It was
The
from
letter from
Iroquois.
I know that Mr. Kroll is in the audience. He may be able to address it. We will let you know the plans that you have before you. Those plans in total were explained fully at the last meeting. But if you'll note that at the last meeting, Mr. Kroll explained that the Redness and Mead had an issue because of, in doing their research, had an issue with laying out the Iroquois gas easement, which had been expanded. So the revised plans and Mr. Kuzmich or Mr. Kroll can comment that on the revised plans that you saw didn't revise anything other than to relocate the condo building, I believe some distance to the south, so that it accommodated and was not in any way interfering with the Iroquois gas easement. The other issues with respect to the Iroquois gas easement that were brought up can easily be addressed. In construction, it's required that when you're dealing with the easement, you go before them. But the main thing was not to have any structure on the easement. And again, Mr. Kroll can comment further on that. So that is the only change in the revised plans that you see. We did also upload the CAM packet. With respect to the CAM packet, and again, Mr. Kroll can comment further, there is no need, because the additional land is not in the floodplain and does not provide direct access. While there was no need at the behest of, or given the concerns of the commission, the applicant then updated the plan to include that other property and simply filed an updated application for purposes to the deep. But in fact, the addition of the auto swage property at its height and everything, and it not being inside the floodplain area and not having direct access to the river, did not require that, but they did it anyway. I do want to comment on the open space comments from Mr. Harbinson.
Okay, Attorney Thomas, can you just clarify something? You're saying that auto swage, it does not have access to the river? Did I hear you right?
It's not in the floodplain.
It's not
in the floodplain. You don't have direct access. You can't, well, you could walk
But
off
it is
the
a
edge
coastal
of
area.
the, huh?
It is a coastal area resource. It's within the
It is a
coastal area.
I guess maybe Mr. Kroll can explain it better, but what I'm saying to you is you cannot access the river from the auto swage property.
Really?
The
That
cliff
property
is too
doesn't
high.
go all the way down and
That's immaterial though. That could be part of your CAM, but it does require a CAM
okay.
by virtue of its location.
I
The
don't know
CAM,
if Mr. Kroll is there. He's more familiar with it, or Mr. Kuzmich about the filing of it. And my understanding was it did not necessarily require an update of the CAM because of certain circumstances, but I'll defer to either one of them in making the responses to that.
Okay, well,
There's
at some
no-
point, we were just to dot our i's and cross our t's. I'd like to make sure that we do get something,
Right.
some decision from whoever takes care of
I
the CAM.
don't,
State
yeah, I
level,
don't think you,
something in
I
writing.
don't, you already have a decision, I believe, but from the CAM approving the prior plans and the impact on the river. And I again, I'll defer to Mr. Crawl or Mr. Kuzmis to comment on that.
Yeah.
With respect to the open space and the comment that was made that the city gave up its access to the river, that is not quite an accurate statement. Just to let you know, I wasn't involved, but in the Murphy's Lane, when the city gave it up, Murphy's Lane did not provide reasonable access to the river. The Murphy's Lane has a 35 to 40 foot, the Murphy's Lane property that we're talking about has a 35 to 40 foot drop over 175 feet. So it was not an access that one would consider either for pedestrians, well, it would be dangerous, but vehicles, it was impossible. And the discussions that took place, and Mr. Crawl could emphasize further on this, were that the city did not want to really retain ownership of that property, which they had at the time. So that was the point. However, in conjunction with that, the expansion of public access to the river at great cost to the client is substantial in this, quite substantial. And there was really, at the request of this commission in earlier hearings, the ability to create public access, some public parking, a public walkway around the river, so that, and plus the public access that members, that residents of the city of Shelton, just like the rest of the public, can access the river to joining up in the boat club and take their kayaks or everything on the river. There is a substantial increase in that public access in this proposal over what exists right now, which is basically
I don't think anybody is on the commission is disputing that at all. Just to clarify, because of the history, if you're driving down River Road, you see a sign, a street sign right across the street that says Murphy's Lane. But years ago, Murphy's Lane supposedly went on this side of River Road down the hill to the river. Was that the original intent?
Well, if you look at the assessor's record, it actually still shows it. They never took it off. The road actually would have continued down this.
Okay, Commissioner Kelly asked if that was a paper street, so to speak.
I would assume so. I can't comment specifically whether it was a situation of that it retained ownership of the adjacent property owners, but more than likely the property descriptions of the property on either side referenced that they abutted an old highway. That would be the normal happened at what you would have from back then. But I just wanted to
some acknowledgement that there was this particular street, so to speak, on deeds of abutters, but if anybody took a ride down there, they would not be able to find it in a way, you know.
Exactly. So again, and the continuation of the public hearing was obviously for the commission to absorb what we submitted at the March meeting, which were the additional renderings, the changes. And like I said, the only change in the site plan was the relocation. So with that, I would turn it over to Andrew Kuzmich to explain what change was in the site plan to move the condominium building off of the Iroquois gas pipeline.
Okay, before you do, Attorney Thomas, on that March 30th letter, the very last paragraph talks about the easements granted to Iroquois, state that the grantor shall not make, construct, or place, or permit to be made, constructed or place any excavation, change of grade, water impoundment, tree, building, structure, or other obstruction on the right of way without the prior written consent of the company. So how are you going to address that comment with the right of, with some of the paddle courts being over the right of way?
The easement, I understand what he's saying. The easement reserves the right for the grantor of the easement to use the property in any way that will not interfere with the pipeline. The most, you cannot put structures on it, nor can you
Right.
put plant trees on it, and we're removing the structures from it. The paddle court would not be a structure. It would be, you're able to cross easements, you're able to put pavement over easements with the understanding that if they need to do any maintenance, they need to tear it up.
Right, okay. All right, Mr. Crowell is here. Do you want him to, then make any comments?
If he wants to begin with the explanation, he certainly can.
Okay, so why don't you identify yourself for the record?
Good evening. My name is Richard Crown. I'm the owner of the property and the president of Beacon Point Remain, the current operator of the property.
Mhm.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just to comment on the last subject, the easement is correct, and I have been in contact with Iroquois regarding our plans, and obviously, again, it's a little bit of a catch-22 of what comes first, what comes second. So we wanted to come here, understand what we can get approved. We know what's in the full terms of the agreement of the easement of not putting structure. There was a line that had not been properly shown on the original survey that we had to correct.
Mhm.
That was done. Once we did that, we had to shift the condominium building approximately 15 or 18 feet or so further south, which we've done. And that takes the structure out of the easement area. As far as the parking areas, the paddle tennis courts, anything of that nature, those are permitted uses, and we will discuss that with Iroquois. They have certain construction precautions, obviously, that they're required when all that work is done. We currently park over their easements. We currently have boat storage over their easements. We work together with them for the last 20 years that we've been operating the site. So we have a good working relationship. We'll continue that. Once we get our site plan approved and we know what it is, then we can kind of go back to them, and we've met the standards that they were looking for regarding structure.
Well, wouldn't they have to, Commissioner Kelly, wouldn't they have to approve what's on the drawing first?
Well, again, it's.
Oh, I know,
Right,
just bear with me for a minute.
sure.
That you show a 5-foot maximum height retaining wall. That does not have a foundation or a structure?
It has a slab, obviously, it'll be a
It's got a
retaining
foundation
structure,
though
right?
underneath it, right?
Yes.
So you would have to get their approval to do that. no?
Yes, in the end, our preliminary conversations with them regarding these types of structures has been with the understanding that it would be able to be done, because it's not something that would disrupt a residential or any sort of operating business. There's no structure
I
involved.
understand that.
So-
And I do, but there's just a disconnect with the minutes of March 15th saying that he had the drawings. And his letter of March 30th saying he doesn't have anything yet. So
Were these submitted to the Iroquois?
I've been back and forth with the Iroquois rep
so when did he get,
several different times.
so
since then.
when did he get the drawings?
He's not, I will tell you this, he's not going to approve the drawings until the commission acts. He's not going to sign off or do anything, because that's normally the procedure is they wait until the drawings are approved, and the applicant obviously is at his own risk that they won't allow something, which would mean the applicant would then have to come back to planning and zoning.
For a modification?
For a modification. Yeah,
They
that's-
can't until they
Yeah,
see where these buildings are gonna
Right.
go.
Well, that's right.
Yeah.
So,
But we don't have to approve where the building's going for them to approve their portion, do we?
we have to approve the overall to show where everything is.
If I may, it's kind of like what I have to do with Stratford and the sewers.
yeah,
You know, I have to come to you to get permission. They won't give me full permission until they know, but I show them preliminarily what we're doing. They say, okay, once you approve it, then I can go back to Stratford for the sewer and get final. It's kind of the same thing in working with Iroquois. I have to work with them up to a point with the understanding of what they're going to permit me to do. So that's why we did move the building in our preliminary discussions and understanding what would be allowed. Now, once you approve the site plan, I can go back to them and make sure that they will approve what you've put your stamp of approval on. If there is a structure or something they have a problem with that we can't work out, I'm sure, you know, our engineers have had experience with this before. They understand what they want. They have construction safety factors. They do have different things that we have to do, like the retaining wall will have to be bonded if there's any rebar in it and different things like that when it goes through the easement. So we have had those discussions. We understand what needs to be done, and we'll make sure that when you approve the site plan, their final letter to us will state that these are some of the requirements.
Because I'm just reading the last paragraph that he wrote. And it says, Iroquois respectfully request that this letter be made part of the record and the applicant provide an accurate update set of plans to Iroquois for review and comment prior to any final approval given by the city. So what does that mean?
He's thoroughly wrong, and he's not in accordance with the law. I mean, that's the easiest thing I could say about him. I understand what his comments are, but he's thoroughly wrong. They do not have a situation where they're required to approve it before the commission acts. I have no idea what he's proposing on that.
Letter, Attorney Thomas? Did you read this letter or no?
I did. I read the letter, and I wanted to be very honest with you. I wanted to respond directly, but Carl said, listen, we'll just work this out after. My response directly would have been, please consult with your legal counsel.
What law would he be in violation of when you're saying that
I didn't say he's in violation of the law. It is not, there is no law out there that says you have to get the approvals ahead of time in this situation. You know, and there's nothing out there in the planning and zoning regulation, statutory regulations, or statutes or regulations that indicates that. If there were, then you'd have to go submit a plan to Iroquois. Iroquois would approve it, and then what he's implying, and then we'd come back with his approval letter. And when you raise an issue, we would say to you, I'm sorry, you can't change that. Iroquois already approved it.
Yeah.
And that would be ridiculous.
No, I don't think he's saying that. I just think he's saying that whoever it is within the company would approve the concept of what you're doing, that you're not interfering with his pipe.
He cannot do anything beyond what is in the easement documents. There is and my client is taking the risk that if he proposes something that they don't agree to, because they're a separate entity, he has to come back. The procedure that's always followed is you do want to do your due diligence. You do want to submit, and as Mr. Crowell said, he's worked with the Iroquois gas people numerous times over the years.
For him to say, yes, they're okay, and then you wouldn't have to spend extra money in case they weren't okay.
That would be okay, but you have to understand, this has been approved twice before. This has been approved twice before over the Iroquois gas pipeline with no problem from Iroquois gas. This isn't a new individual who has stepped in and insured his own, but twice before, in 2007 and 2018, the plans were approved.
Attorney Thomas, would it have made a difference if, as this is being noticed, it's for final detailed development plans, would it have helped if this came in as an initial concept? Or because of the fact that this is a modification of something already, a PDD that's already approved, the final development plan was the most appropriate way of categorizing this?
Right. It's the final site development plans that tells you what can be built. That's when you go to Iroquois. If you are foolish enough to submit final site development plans that violate the terms and conditions of the easement or there, then that's on the developer, because he doesn't do anything. It's his fault. In
Okay.
this situation, like I said, the plans have been submitted before. They, Iroquois, there was no issues in 2007, 2018. For some reason, this individual is raising issues that Mr. Kroll is ready, willing, and able to address at the appropriate time, and he's very familiar with the issues with the easement, having operated this property for the last, whatever, 20+ years.
How far below the surface does the pipeline run? Is it vary depending on where it is on the hill?
Yes,
Yeah, it is.
but
Okay.
it's 40 feet deep when it hits the roof.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And then talking about easements, on the other side of the rowing club building is the Tenneco gas easement. Has anybody been in touch with them?
Nothing's changed in that area since the last, so they have no further comment. But no, we're far enough on, we have the offsets and setbacks, and all that's in their area is the paved road. So
Okay,
they're fine with it, but I can confirm all that.
yes, I think you should.
We've been,
have it
well, I
in the
have,
record. Yeah.
you know, we worked with them along the way, and they were correct in the original
Mhm.
recognition that the easement was not depicted correctly on this survey.
Mhm.
For whatever reason, there wasn't an update on the town records
Mhm.
when they filed the amended easement. So
Okay.
it was just an oversight on the engineering part of where it went. And the gentleman who wrote the letter was correct in that. We did remedy that.
Mhm.
And that was the major concern. The driveways, parking areas, the courts, anything that can be excavated, that's basically surface. The retaining walls are necessary due to the proper engineering of the access way. They cannot deny the access way, and they understand that.
Mhm.
So we spoke to them and do understand that we need to work with them in the construction of those retaining walls. They just have certain standards,
Yeah.
and we're aware of that. So I'm very comfortable moving forward to this point. Once you give me the approval site, I can go back to them and say, okay, here's what we have. How do we go about finishing it? And
Okay.
we'll be good.
Well, we're the Tenneco one.
Yes,
ran,
same thing.
It never changed,
No,
and there wasn't any, you don't have any setbacks or anything you have to abide by that would affect what's shown
the
on
setbacks
this.
are all shown. Everything
Yeah.
is to.
It's appropriate.
We thought it was originally on the
Yeah.
Iroquois until we
Was it?
found the drafting error, but
Okay.
now that's been remedied as well.
Okay.
All right, Mr. Crowell or Attorney Thomas, what else do you have for us before, the gentleman from Redness?
Well, the only two things would be if Rick wanted to comment on the CAM comments and to explain what change was made in the filing today to address the Iroquois gas easement.
So there's some new documentation as of today?
No, not today. What I uploaded, the plans that you have before you today, the 2 sheets, the only change in that is a relocation of the condo building to provide the appropriate setback to the Iroquois gas easement.
Right. Okay.
I don't know, Rick, if you want to address it or if you want Andrew to address it.
Well, I think Andrew can address the specifics of what had to occur. It was very simple. We had plenty of room to adjust the movement of the building. There was one other item that we had to address in the newly submitted site plan, and that is the property lines that were not depicted correctly from the land that was acquired from the state. When the state had given up, so all of that's now been corrected, and you will see that now there's none of the driveways or anything that is not on our property, other than where we're permitted to cross the state easement for access. Now, all of that has all been now updated correctly on this engineer drawing.
Okay.
And I can ask Andrew to address very quickly the CAM status of the CAM, modified CAM application, and whatever nuances came with just moving the building a little further aside, if you want, Andrew.
Okay.
Excuse me, Andrew Kosmich with Redness and Mead, Mr. Kroll's civil engineer. So
Okay, Andrew, would you do me a favor and spell your last name for our stenographer?
Kuzmich.
I'm sorry, I didn't catch the beginning of that.
Kuzmich.
Got it. Okay, thank you, Andrew. Go right
No
ahead.
problem. So on the issue of CAM, the application that was approved in 2018 had a CAM permit approval. And since the auto swage property has been added to the development, we provided modified application documents to incorporate that property into the CAM application. And that was submitted back in January, I believe, or maybe early March. The property is in the CAM zone. You could conceivably walk down the steep, rocky riprap to get to the water, but it's not. The property hasn't been a water dependent use as the auto swage facility, and would be very difficult to make it so, given how steep and of a drop off it is from the developed area down to the Housatonic River.
Okay. All right.
And then, excuse me.
No, I was just gonna say, so is there anything in writing that they issued to say
Um,
you're good to go?
Not that I'm aware of to date.
Do they normally?
In 2018, we did get an approval, a CAM approval, so I believe they do.
Okay, so if somebody could follow up on that, that'd be great. And you had some other comments?
I can just quickly run through the site plan changes. If you'd like me to share my screen, I can put the plan up.
Yes, please do so.
Okay. I just need permission to do so.
Yep, our administrator's gonna take care of that.
Okay. But they're really, as Attorney Thomas said before, they're really three fairly simple modifications. The property boundary modification, or correction rather, that was made to update the property boundary on the west side of the site between the right of way and our site, that now shows correctly, and you'll notice that all the walks, everything's the same, but everything's now in the property. So the property boundary is actually right on the back of the walk here, where my cursor is. Coming down that way. Before we had it farther internal to the site because it wasn't accounting for the land take. What's highlighted in yellow here, that's the Iroquois gas easement limit. This gray dashed line that is parallel to the yellow highlighted lines, that's where we previously showed the limit. And we've updated that for coordination with Spencer Robinson from Iroquois Gas Company's surveying department to make sure we have the right mapping. And we have that correct on the plan. Down in this area where condo building 1 is, condo building 1 was previously 18 feet north and clipped into the easement area. So we shifted it, and we had plenty of room to do so, shifted it south, right in line with the building, the east side of the building, so that we have 10 feet off of the easement area between the face of the building corner here and the limit of the easement. And really all we did on the south end was eat into the large asphalt space, do so. So we actually ended up kind of gaining more green or grassy area on the north side and losing, or really just swapping asphalt pavement for building on the south side. No change to parking. The parking's the same up on the top, same number of spaces. We have the same, no parking fire lane and kind of painted way into the garage of the condo building. Really, it was a fairly simple fix, which is good. And that's it. Those are the 3 plan changes since the last time you've seen these plans.
Okay. Any questions from any of the commissioners?
Yeah, a couple things.
Okay, this is Commissioner Motto.
Yeah, the retaining walls, what are they gonna look like? What are they made out of?
So, and I would imagine some of these are fairly substantial walls, so they'll be poured in place, reinforced concrete retaining walls. But there are other options available, like we can do modular block walls. But my guess it would be one of those 2, either poured in place, reinforced concrete, where we need a strong tall wall, or potentially modular block in other locations.
Typically, your final detail plans should show
Yeah.
that.
On the top left corner of condo building number 1, it says retaining wall to be designed by others. And So that's not part of your responsibility or the architects?
Yeah, so that would be done by a structural engineer. What we show on the plan, it shows is a conservative footprint of a retaining wall. This is probably thicker in profile than it would need to be, or in plan view than it would need to be.
Yeah.
And what's customary on these types of jobs is that prior to getting a building permit to build the wall, a structural engineer would design the reinforcement and the detailing for someone to use to build the wall.
In the plan development district, the commission's entitled to know what the wall is going to be constructed of and what is it going to look like.
Mhm. Mr. Kozmic, are you familiar with what Mr. Panico is indicating about our PDD requirement?
I do understand, and yeah, and Mr. Kroll, do you have any preference on what you want this wall to look like at this time?
The original design was simply poured concrete, where we were doing it with planting or other treatments that we had done on the landscape plan, which is not shown here. It's in the files that have been submitted. So some of that, again, will come into play once we go back to Iroquois in certain areas as well, and to Tenneco, to make sure if there's any walls in those areas that they're constructed to their specifications as well. So that was our original plan. If there's areas that we feel we need to do something a little bit more architectural, or the commission believes that we need to address something, then we would take a look at that.
I would definitely put that on your punch list of submitting designs.
And I missed the beginning, Mr. Crowe, did you indicate that you expect them to be poured in place concrete?
For the majority of it, yes, Mr. Pender.
Okay. You said most of the walls are low, and you're right, most of the walls are low. That particular corner where the marina storage area below the big building is, that's got a significant grade change from the lower level up to where the dumpster pad is, for example. That's far from a low wall.
That one is, you're correct.
Yeah, so some of the renderings just show a kind of wall, but that needs to be expanded on.
Okay.
Yeah, just to clarify, I think what we're looking at here, when they're talking about the type of wall, I think, and Mr. Panico could correct me if I'm wrong, they're talking about what the wall is going to look like. In other words, is it going to have thin, is it going to be whatever that pressed concrete, which has a design or something of that nature? Or is it just going to be straight concrete? And normally the commission prefers.
There's a variety of choice,
Right, yeah. Normally the commission prefers something.
Mafia block.
Yeah, well, right, no, it can't be that, obviously, and I think they know that, but then do you want it with whatever kind of design or whatever kind of.
Want something
facing
aesthetically
that can be.
acceptable to the commission.
Yeah, aesthetically acceptable to the site is the best version. And that is what they're talking about, not the structural engineers. The commission doesn't structurally design the wall. The commission wants to know what the wall looks
We
like.
understand that, but
Yeah.
we'd also like to know ahead of time what it's going to look like, so the commission is not unhappy when they see the result.
Right.
Just
No,
as
understood.
when the Marketplace Shopping Center on Lower Bridgeport Avenue was being put through the application process, we saw pictures of what the high wall behind Big Y and continuing all the way back behind Motto is going to look like. So, yeah, nothing too much different of a request I think this would be.
While we're
So-
talking about aesthetics, and I just happened to notice looking at the drawing that's in front of us, there are two dumpster pads in this drawing, one up by the commercial restaurant building and the other one down by the corner of the boathouse, I guess. In this kind of detailed plans, the commission wants to know what those enclosures are going to consist of, what they're going to look like, because they want them to be consistent in aesthetics with the buildings they're adjacent to. So
Mhm.
just anticipating a pad with a fenced-in enclosure is not going to cut it.
Right.
I do believe we'd have to go to the landscape plan, which I don't think is available tonight to put up on the screen.
So that's.
But I do
It
know
is,
there's.
so it is available.
Yes.
It is available. If, Andrew, could you stop screen sharing?
All
I
set.
think I should be able to
Maybe,
get the
Or-
landscape plan. I want to make sure I get the,
but some of the plantings around the dumpster areas, and it may be addressed from that, if not, we will.
Yeah, I want to talk about the path also.
Yeah, we have a.
Okay.
All right, so Attorney Thomas is,
yeah, why don't, talk about, let me go find the, landscape plan and I will be able to put it up. Okay,
yeah, go ahead.
okay.
Chair, this is Commissioner Laskos. I had a question.
Go ahead, Commissioner Laskos.
Does the applicant have a cross-section of the easement showing the depths of as it exists now and as proposed for over the pipeline, gas line?
We have not prepared a cross-section, but I can tell you how much, if you're looking for the greatest difference in grade, I can tell you that quickly if you'd like.
I'd like to see the whole thing. I'd like to see the whole thing from street to water.
Yeah, so that's not something we prepared in the previous application, so did not anticipate that this time around, but we can do that.
Okay, we'll submit that as soon as that's ready, please. Okay, anything else, Commissioner Laskos, before?
That's it. Thank you.
Okay, Attorney Thomas, did you find that landscape plan?
Yep,
Okay,
it's 2 sheets. Here's the first sheet, here's the second sheet. Okay, Mr. Carl, do you, what do you want me to focus on?
Question was the dumpster pad up by the medical office restaurant area was the first dumpster pad?
yeah, it's by the
Okay, hold on a
restaurant.
second.
Yeah.
Hold on 1 second.
Is it on a, building elevation plan?
No, it's just.
No, it's right here. The,
Yeah, we
This is
have
the-
that, we see that, but we're looking for the rendering or a building elevation or
Okay, you
something.
want an elevation of.
Yeah, of the dumpster enclosure,
Elevation.
yeah, because we want to see how it's gonna be designed, what materials, that kind of thing. Okay,
The other-
Mr. Panico, oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Panico, you brought that up. Is there anything else about the dumpster enclosure?
No, just that it needs to be designed and we need to see it on the detail sheets and it needs to be compatible with the building it's serving in appearance and convenience. Before we leave the easement business about the gas companies and stuff, there was mention made about gas line facilities in an easement alongside of 110. Right? I was wondering if anybody can clarify what those facilities look like and to what degree they are or are not going to be affected. Even though they're not on your property, apparently they're not on your property, they're in the state right away.
That is correct.
Can anybody talk about it at all?
If you, Dominic, if you can move the sheet up towards 110, the current drawing.
Yeah,
And then,
somewhere in there's got to be some facilities, I guess.
and just north a little bit, on River Road, if you will, move the drawing down. Right there, if somewhere, it's not clearly shown, you went a little too far, but from where it says River Road on that drawing, south towards the river and between there and the driveway, egress, ingress, right in that area, there is their, safety station, they call it pump stations and things that are located on that part of the state easement. We have no.
Are you going to be able to landscape out there?
We can landscape to our property. Some of those trees are existing, some of them we can put in the state easement towards the south. I think there's a couple of those trees that he has there that are there now. I don't think those are all our plantings. So no, we would not be planting anywhere in that area of the,
Yes, I think your landscaping proposals, if they are going to extend off-site, so to speak, it will require, in this case, DOT approval. And because of the gas, it'll require the gas company approvals. So,
correct. And when we go through the final meetings with them on our construction program with Iroquois and Tenneco, we will ensure that we have their blessings, if you will, on what's going on.
Okay, so at the,
The gas
now-
easement's over here.
Yeah,
yep, when we,
This is the easement.
we're driving down a river road and we took a left into the property, the existing driveway. It's that play area that a lot of people park on, and there's some kind of structure there that's what you're referring to as a pump
Just-
house?
just before that.
Yeah,
Where people come up
Yeah.
and park and sit under the big
Right.
tree that's right
Right.
on top there. I think that's shown in the drawing here, this landscape plan.
yeah.
That right, almost right where Dominic Gerald just was. That's
Mhm,
that big tree that they like to park under and kind of look out over the area.
Right.
Just north of that, there's a fenced in area
Mhm.
that is all part of the
Actually,
Iroquois.
Says that on the drawing, concrete wall with fence.
Concrete wall with fence.
I know
on.
there are visible, my recollection is that there were visible structures in that area.
Right.
And since they're on your frontage, it would be desirable to locate them and plot them.
I believe they are
Well,
located on other plans, just not this landscape plan, but we can make sure it
Okay.
comes here on this plan.
They're on the basic plans? If I couldn't,
Yeah.
Yeah,
There's some-
the area is
Yeah,
correct. On the-
is that that's the big one that we're looking here on the table?
yeah,
And it
that
does-
is a concrete wall.
Yeah, that's,
Yes, that
What is
area.
that all about?
And a fenced enclosure, right? I believe that's the area.
That's the area where the facilities are?
yeah,
Is that a concrete wall above grade or is it a retaining wall?
It's access both, depending upon how the grade falls away. So they had it almost around the entire area. It's at grade as you get closer to River Road and then
from
kind
the
of,
road, it's like great.
right, and then it drops away and then the fence is on top of that.
Well, I think it ought to be shown on your drawings. If for no other reason than the drawing seems to show it encroaching onto your property. Is it going to stay or is it going to be taken out?
No,
That last part, you're going to be excavating in there, aren't you?
it's right in that clouded structure. Where it says property line typical.
Right,
Yeah.
Our property line cuts through the corner now of where it is because the state had given up that easement and that's where they had drawn it through. So you're correct. You can see where your chain link fence is. We're going to have to adopt some of that, but again, that's something we have to work with Iroquois.
Well, work it
I
out,
guess-
but also show it on the drawings.
Okay,
Well,
we'll, I understand the
yeah,
landscape plan.
Can I
when
say-
you say structure, I want to understand something. When you say structure, you're talking about the piping and the concrete wall. There's no buildings there.
No,
no,
There's no
I
buildings.
understand that, but there are facilities that project above grade from what it sounds like.
Right,
reading the
they
letter.
are gas facilities, right? There's no building.
Okay.
It is.
I asked
Yeah,
Ms.
they-
No, I
Castro-
understand that. I understand it. But they
Mr.
talked
Campbell
about
and Attorney
an
Thomas,
emergency
I asked-
valve, a pipeline internal inspection facilities, also known as a launcher, and other appurtenances. Well, I don't know what those appurtenances are, and I don't know to what degree we are impacting them, they're impacting us, or they cause some constraints on landscaping, grading, whatever.
Okay, Mr. Panico and Attorney Thomas, I asked Ms. Castro to go on, look for a street view. Yes, try that. You put it up and then we'll see if it's the entrance, driveway entrance.
I can,
Here it comes. All right, so turn around. Keep turning. Go down the street, I think. So, there you go. Keep going a little more, keep a little more. Right where that tree is, go a little more. Now turn left. Face,
Turn a little too.
There it is.
You gotta go north, back
go
north. a
back
little
to
bit.
Shelton.
Yes,
What are we looking at here?
That's
For
the area of the
for the,
marina.
that's it right there.
All
yeah,
right, stop and turn to the right.
A little too far.
Keep,
Yes,
go back.
go backward, just go back more
that's it in.
and then
There
zoom
it
in.
is.
So that's the,
That's it.
those are the facilities in there, right?
Yeah,
Yes.
there it is.
Okay,
right there.
yep.
All right,
That's what it is.
pan to the right. There you go. There you go. So those are existing pipes and stuff, is that like
I'm
venting
not sure what they.
or something? Okay,
Yeah,
but that's the area that Mr. Panico was concerned
And
about.
it's, again, not really, wall, it's, you know, they're, movable barriers that they put around it.
Mhm. Okay. All right, does that help?
I'm
Mr. Panico?
assuming they have some sort of an easement or right to put it in the state right of way.
Presumably.
Yeah,
Yeah, that
I
wouldn't.
doubt that the state would let it do without it.
Right, I would think so. The state would want some protection, but it's not something we can impact at all. I mean, certainly we can have, it didn't, from the picture, it doesn't look like they mow the lawn that well. But neither does the state. So,
All right.
you know.
It also,
Don't
they
have that
also
much
had that
control.
big truck parking area right next to it. And yet your landscape plan suggests you want to make it nice, pretty landscaping.
Right, and that'll require us to talk to the state,
Yeah,
to
that you
the
mean,
DOT. I just don't think we can do anything inside that fence at this point,
I understand
without
that.
talking to Iroquois.
I understand that.
Okay, but the
what
bottom line
acknowledge the
is-
fact that it's there.
right. The bottom line is, on the punch list, you need to address and show the commission exactly how it's gonna be treated. And Commissioner Amato, I think, had another
Just
question.
Well, on this walkway all the way around, I personally happen to like that process material. I know Jimmy's not crazy about that, but so we've mentioned more of a hardscape there, but I would really not want to see asphalt, so I think we have to designate what that paving would be. You can get like pavers or something of that more formal looking.
That is a question overall, that the boardwalk starts to the left of the three-bay garage that's below the marina, where it's marina storage. And it continues, and it says 5-foot wide boardwalk. There's a little jog as it approaches the rowing club building. Continues and it's identified as a 5-foot wide boardwalk. And we go off the page. But on the next page, I think at some point, it references there are stairs. Yeah, here we go.
Near the
Right
north end of that last building.
Right, past building 3, it continues, there's stairs, it curves around, it jogs behind apartment building 3. And it's mentioned there, it's a concrete sidewalk. So it does split. Does it split? Yeah, there's a split, and that's where there's a crosswalk that goes behind, heads towards River Road, and that's where it says 5-foot wide process walk. So I think that's a determination the commission has to make us to do we want all the same kind of treatment on that, on those walkways or not?
I think what we tried to do in the original.
Where does the boardwalk end?
Was, to create the different medias,
Mhm.
you know, along the marina was a bit of a boardwalk, which is more typical of walking along, you know, a dock area or a marina
Right.
area. And then as we got up around the bend of the north part of the property and got more into like would be trail walking or trail running and some stairs, we actually have a plan that we might modify if you go back without stairs, so kind of have to switch back to it, that we could use the process or a softer material for that people tend to like when they jog or run or do some trail work. And then as you came up in front of the buildings, make it a little bit more formal for the walkways, because we do have the parking areas there. So either processed or paved, obviously, when we're coming across the area in front of the other side of that building as you go further south, I guess, along the path right there where you cross the driveway, and then it gets paved along the curb here just because of the proximity to the parking area and
Mhm.
walks, turn into asphalt up top because you had requested
Yeah.
at the early meetings, so we made that modification. And that's where it's at. If you would like us to change some of the media, we have several different types that we
Yeah.
kind of blended.
My
throughout the
only
site.
concern about the process part was, what do you do in the wintertime? Does the
I
snow,
understand you can plow it, you can do anything to it.
Can
That's
you?
my
The
understanding
process
of
does,
that.
and it actually melts through better.
Okay.
It doesn't get as icy
Mhm.
because of the processed material, and it's a
Softer to
black
walk
top, so the
on.
sun does
It
work.
doesn't crack.
okay, now does this, the boardwalk, is that planks?
Yes,
Okay, so that's planking, and that, at what point,
it's basically in front of the marina. If you
Where,
just
where does it end?
where does it? it's-
from down the very south part of the main parcel, if you will, where the marina starts, where the travel lift was, Dominic. You just go a little south first,
You
you're
got-
going north.
No, the
It's
other
still
way,
boardwalk.
Okay.
It's labeled boardwalk. Is that incorrect?
No, that's correct.
yeah,
So
is
from
correct.
right here where the travel lift is, right there, all the way north now, if you plow pan north, down, or whoever's running the thing, you'll see that the boardwalk kind of follows the marina. So anywhere we have marina out
Okay.
front, and then it'll kind of
About
come up.
about where do you think it'll stop?
We
Let
would
me go to
blend
the
it
next
somewhere
page.
in this area where you just begin to walk along the river and not have to access the docks. So we would make that kind of transition, somewhere out.
Hold it right there.
Yeah. Excuse me, but somewhere in front of the condominiums, we would transition it to give it a softer look. We could continue with asphalt or processed or whatever the commission saw fit, but we thought the
where,
process
Put some,
material.
put some labels on the drawing so we can have an
It
idea of
says
when you think it's
asphalt.
gonna stop.
We had put asphalt on the drawing here where we transitioned from the wood right there at the last dot. If you see, it stopped the, you see, we moved, but anyway, that was the comment that we had gotten at one of the earlier meetings that.
Okay, so you'll show it on the drawing where you anticipate the boardwalk ending.
If you, yes.
Then it'll convert to a regular sidewalk.
What the preferred media is, then we're happy to accommodate in any, whether it's processed or, you want it paved, we can pave it.
Paved, I like,
Also, your site plans show asphalt curbing all over the place. It's been the commission's preference on developments of this magnitude to see concrete curbing. It can be extruded concrete, but concrete, not bituminous.
Okay,
You have many locations where you have concrete walk separated from pavement by an asphalt curb. That just isn't going to work out, you know?
okay. I think that just got a little changed when we were changing the walkway,
Sure.
so.
Sure.
now you
We'll
just
make it-
mentioned about a switchback instead of the steps here,
Yes,
so you're gonna have a new design to show us?
we could. It was depending, again, if you want us to change media or make it a little bit more accessible for folks that may have trouble with stairs.
Right, but,
So-
the boardwalk planking was to end,
The easiest way I can explain to you from here is right in front of the last dock in the marina. So if you look on the water side.
Yeah, it says
you
the pier
can see
one.
here, it should be somewhere right in. Just past that dock, somewhere in there, we would make a transition, whatever kind of is fitting with the bank stabilization and how it all worked out.
Wouldn't it make sense to change from the boardwalk then to the concrete walk up to and including the stairs? And then if you want to transition to something else, we can talk about it.
But that's,
He's saying over
again,
here.
a little bit, I defer to the commission as to what the need is, but
concrete, I don't know.
concrete's another, challenging maintenance issue, especially along the water. Salt water in, it freezes and
Pavers?
gets a little challenging. Why don't you let us look at it a little bit and we'll come
Yeah.
back to you with a couple of suggestions if you
Yeah.
like, as far as what the different changes would be from the wood to walking,
Are you talking about the steps?
not
Right,
asphalt.
yeah.
Yeah, the whole section from where we go from wood up to where the current steps, if you will, are shown now, up to that incline and then back in front of the building 3 and building 2. So
Mhm.
that we will get consistent there. I know it says processed in some areas in asphalt and others. I think we made some changes on one of the drawings just to show the asphalt because of the comments at the earlier meetings. And it wasn't consistent all the way through because we weren't sure. We had a little back and forth as to whether or not the commission was looking at a processed or asphalt or where it would be. But let us do a little research and see what other alternatives might be there. And we'll come back to you. Now knowing what you're asking for, make our best suggestion.
Yeah.
It would seem to me that anything in proximity to the buildings ought to be concrete.
How about pavers?
Then when you get to the other side and you begin to parallel the highway line, then it's up to, if the commission wants to go with process, that's fine. Or if they want something different, that's fine. But the ones that are in close proximity to the buildings themselves really should be concrete. And I think that's how you've basically shown them.
Yeah, it says concrete behind building 1.
Yeah.
Commissioner Amato was asking Mr. Panico if pavers would be an option.
If what?
Pavers? Paving blocks?
You know, pavers.
Well,
They look
I guess, yeah.
Are we talking about, because it seems to me, I'm getting a little confused. There are sidewalks, I believe, around the buildings. There is also a public walkway around the site. Are we talking about the public, just about the public walkway around the site? See, for example, if you look at the screen, right here, the public walkway, and let me put my cursor, right here, the public walkway comes out. And then it appears that there's a walk or whatever in front of the building, but the walkway, the public walkway crosses the highway and then goes up here, proposed walk. As opposed
We're
to,
on the
so
other
I'm
side
just
of
trying
the
to,
building.
That's right.
yeah. So I'm trying to just understand, we're talking about, Tony, you're talking about concrete sidewalks in front of the building. But you're not
Yes,
talking about
as you
concrete
first,
sidewalk.
as they're currently labeled.
Okay, right. All right, I just didn't, I want that I wanted to understand that we're talking about 2 different sidewalks at some point.
Yes. Well, yes
Yeah.
and no. But even what you referred to as the quote public unquote walk, that so-called public walkway is going to continue down the slope and along the river, correct?
Right. It's going to continue down here along
Right.
the river. There's some point in here that it's concrete, and then I think, if I'm correct,
It's on boardwalk.
Rick, at which these things that are say piers, are they the existing or the old? What are they? Are they the new?
Most of the older ones.
Those are the older ones. So the boardwalk isn't going to begin until you go back to page 1. Is that correct?
No, the boardwalk is
actually,
on
the
page
boardwalk's
2
gonna
also.
begin-
Yeah.
The boardwalk's going to begin here. Is that correct, Rick?
Right about where it says stop sign and bar, if you will, where that line,
Right
somewhere
here.
right.
Okay, so right there is where the boardwalk's going to begin. And then after the boardwalk, this is going to be what, concrete, or what's this going to be?
Well, originally we had planned on a process material, I believe, along there, or, right, depending upon the commission. Originally this process, early meeting with the commission, they kind of mentioned asphalt, so we relabeled it asphalt, but along in that area, something in the process material that provides good drainage and allows, a firm base, and it's something that we really have to consider. Concrete and asphalt along there where it gets wet and, you have tidal situations or, potential areas where it freeze and.
What's the difference between that area along the river then further south where it is stated as a boardwalk?
Well, the boardwalk's really.
Yeah, but so what's the
I,
difference?
I would suggest that the applicant needs to tell us what he thinks he'd like to do, and then the commission can agree or disagree. But right now, we're guessing as to what we thought you were planning to do.
Well, we've
You got
labeled it-
parallel lines, it's 5-foot walk, but we
Yeah.
scrounged through all the drawings and we couldn't figure out what kind of walk it was. Was it boardwalk? Was it concrete walk?
We'll,
No, it was where it started, where it ended, that was the confusion. But my, going back to my question, what is the difference between how close you are to the river where it says boardwalk and where you are here, where it changes to asphalt curb?
well, it's all walkway. It's
Right.
just a matter of the boardwalk is just that, it's a board.
Right,
Right, so there's no difference in essence, except it drains because it's got the slats.
Yeah.
Between it, so
but don't you need that drainage all along here in front of the apartment building?
Well, yes, but to put in the wood structure too becomes a lot more of a maintenance issue and it becomes. Something else, it's a little bit of a challenge too for people. Sometimes if they're walking strollers and different things on, because it bounces and some people don't like it as a
Yeah,
walkway.
I understand
But
that.
people go into their boats and docks are used to that, and that's kind of what the ambiance is, if you will, in that area.
Mhm. I think the
I get that.
transition
Yeah,
would be
understood.
better around the
Yeah.
curve. Where the stairs that you're talking about a switchback,
Mhm.
rather than so far and then all of a sudden. In front, after a certain building, the last two the apartment buildings get the asphalt kind of. Sidewalk treatment, not. I think it's gotta be a little bit more consistent.
Well, we had it as process and we
Yeah.
changed it to actual
Asphalt.
after one of the original meetings.
So who
We
likes
can go back and
asphalt?
look. So, the
Oh.
transition is not that abrupt. We've done it before, as
Yeah.
I've shown
Yeah.
you some pictures. And,
We'll see.
it was just a matter of depicting the marina
Yeah,
and then kind of keeping it a little separate and getting into a more, as you know, we worked hard not to have any parking or anything between the buildings and just letting it kind of blend in with the riprap bank is stone.
Mhm.
So having that stone walkway and processed material just seemed to blend nicely rather than, being something else.
if
that
you
was
had
there.
a,
It's retained on both sides. It's done, it's edged really
Right.
well and done properly. It's not just,
I think it's nice to walk on, right?
So-
But anyway.
just
yeah.
as long as it doesn't look like all of a sudden, oh, they're cutting corners for their. Appearance, it's not like you're going through a gate or something.
no.
Or turning the corner, then, okay, you have a separation. So you could, that would make sense, but if it's a continuation
You need
kind
a
of
flow.
thing, yeah. So.
We understand
Yeah,
what
come
you're
back.
saying now.
Yeah.
We'll
So you'll
figure
address
something out.
that,
to
Okay.
make it look nice for you.
We're all about the aesthetics.
yes.
That's fine.
And you are too.
We have to be
Yeah.
sure. No, it's an
Yeah.
important part of the project, so we want to make
So,
sure it looks well.
And I just gonna go back to the planting plan, because that's what I do, but
Mhm.
we're in the process of, I hope, asking for native plantings.
Mhm.
And you have a lot of native trees, you have some that aren't, and the smaller plants are very few natives there. So,
Okay, I know we had directed the landscape architect to stay with natives early on, so
Mhm.
well,
if he didn't, I will. go back.
the perennials
Not my
and the
expertise.
small shrubs and not so much.
Okay.
The trees, there's some ginkgo in there we don't need and a couple of other, couple of
Okay.
things, but.
I'll
yeah.
make, a change.
But a lot, some really nice tree selections.
Can I ask a question about, where? On the second page, I don't, yeah, on the 1B, you have the pool indicated here between the two apartment buildings. Do you have any, plans to do something where you have restrooms or a pool house or something?
There will have to be a drinking fountain, shower and rest room. And it can be both male, female shared. I believe we had talked about it. We had to, it's the state, as you know, that permits the pools. So we did get that put back to us. So we will have to put in a drinking fountain and a shower area somewhere on the pad. And then what we were looking at was in one of the stairwell areas to, expand that corner and be able to put potentially a bathroom. That kind of came up in the last.
And they, and then this extension on the apartment building,
Yes,
those little bump outs.
right, those are stairwells, so there's an
Okay.
area there that we could potentially,
You have a retaining wall between the pool area and the upper parking lot, right? So there
Yes, sir.
won't be access to the pool area from up top. You'll have to access it from the bottom?
that's correct.
Okay. And somewhere in there, you're gonna have facilities.
That's correct.
You
Yeah, in the back-
access it from the building. The pool is only for the building tenants, not for anybody else.
It only serves these two buildings, period? Is that what
I
you said?
believe so. It makes sure, I don't know if it serves the condo people.
Well, right now, it
too,
doesn't
but-
show any access to the pool area, so
Yeah.
figure it out and show it.
Yeah, the little squares that can go around the edge, that's supposed to be fencing?
Yes,
Okay. Yeah, so we need to see, you know, the entry and how you're gonna present it. Yeah, if you can clarify, is this something that is for all of the residents of the complex?
it is
Yeah.
residents only.
Yeah, right, but the people in the condos can
Yes,
go down there. Those,
So this pool is not serving the condos then?
yes, it is. The residents, any residents of the site.
Okay. Okay, so then you need to have a convenient way of getting to it, so you discourage people from jumping in their car and come and park up by the pool.
Hence, there's no parking down by the.
yeah,
Yeah.
there is none,
But
right.
Just address it.
What is the change in grade from the parking area above it, where it says 39 parking spaces? Stop bar?
the retaining wall there is about 10, even 12. Depending upon where you're at, there's a grade change of about 10 to 12 feet. From the
Mhm.
parking area to the lower level.
Yeah, so it'll be landscape and such that you can't start a trail, you know, like that,
Right,
walking down.
correct.
And I would imagine you would be a little concerned too about runoff and all that kind of stuff,
Drainage, correct.
drainage. What about the parking spaces? They're shown 9 by 18. That's not including a car overhang. You're not going to have any car overhanging a sidewalk, right?
Generally, that's or not being the intention. Correct.
Yeah, that's right in that, right above where the pool is and in that parking area, it shows a 9 by 18. Mr. Panico, there was something that's within regulation?
Well, yeah, technically, a parking space by definition in the regulations is 180 square feet. So if you want to have an 18-foot depth, you're supposed to have 10 feet. I realize that 18 was originally 20. It was a 20-20-20 layout, but in order to satisfy the emergency access conditions requiring a 24-foot drive, you took the 2 feet off of the stall, which is fine as long as the car can overhang a walk. But there are times when it cannot overhang, and you need to look at it and make sure that you have an adequate depth to the spaces.
Mm-hmm. Are
Okay,
you,
I'd have to defer to the engineers on that. And
yeah, are you having car stops?
They were some,
While we're talking parking, you have some, in fact, the one right in front of us, 39 parking spaces in a row without a break. That's
Yeah.
obviously, that's not acceptable. You've got to break those long stretches of parking with an occasional take a space out and put in a 10-foot, 8 or 9 or 10-foot planting island.
Mhm. Yeah, I think Mr. Panico's concern is that that's a really long span.
Yeah, we can add an island or two, maybe every 15 or 20 spaces.
Yeah.
I will say
Gotta get a little closer than 20 spaces.
so this is the same parking layout was approved previously. So again, we didn't have a reason to think this would be an issue since it was previously approved. And as far as locations where the car cannot overhang in front of the parking space, I'd like, if you wouldn't mind pointing those out to me, because I believe we have overhang room in front of all the parking.
All except the parking that's serving the restaurant and medical building.
Yeah, you're referring to the lower, the middle and lower tier over there?
There's some up top and there's some down below.
Yeah, where it says 9 feet typical. And the parking lot to the left of the
There you go.
restaurant.
When you have 2 rows of parking bumper to
I guess
bumper,
double stacked parking. Yep, understood. Okay.
take a look at it and see what you can do with it.
Yeah, 9 by 18 is pretty much the standard in most communities now because most of them want to reduce the amount of asphalt. And, you know, there are people who drive pickup trucks. You can't stop them, but most cars fit very comfortably in 9 by 18. That's why most of the towns have adopted that as their standards.
Mhm. One of the things I just noticed is in that upper left-hand parking lot where Auto Swage building is now, you've got islands and there's specifically in one, it points to a light. So is that gonna be continued? In that long span, where are those lights gonna be?
And not,
Those islands were
Sure.
removed because of the need to turn vehicles for the traffic for the, I'm sorry, for the fire department. Was that why they got lost?
Yes, that's correct.
Well,
Well,
And
we
they-
didn't need to lose them, but it made it a more gentle turn for a fire truck.
okay, what is that black dot at the end of your line? Is
that's
that
just pointing
is
out.
that
it's
you're
a paint-
indicating the
painted
area?
island.
Yeah,
Okay. But there is a traffic light, I mean,
there is a parking, yep,
Yes.
parking lot lights in the middle. You know, safely away from where the fire truck turn would occur. We have a plan that shows.
could you
turning.
put a smaller island in and still satisfy the turning radii problems?
I suppose we could do that, although I'm not sure. I mean, you know,
It's a shame.
how much of
because
a benefit that
you
would,
take a nice layout and it's been made into a mess because of that.
yeah.
All right, so where are the lighting stations gonna be for that long span that Mr. Panico was referring to a little while ago?
There's one in each of those islands or painted islands. You see the white dot?
Yeah, I do.
Those white dots are light poles.
I think we're in two different areas. I'm on the second page of the plan. I'm on the 1B sheet. And that's where the long span of parking spaces are between the 2 apartment buildings. So where's the lighting plan there? You have to add islands to break that span up, so.
Yeah, so there are some lights indicated on the west side, and I would, you know, lighting off the building would illuminate the east side of the driveway.
When you say lighting off the building, what kind of lighting?
Talking spotlights?
I'm not sure what type of lighting that may be a question for the architect, but that's
It shows, he shows lighting standards along this side as well, the building side.
Right.
that's a fire
There
hydrant.
are, yeah,
That's
there are
what?
lighting standards. It would all be down lighting. And it would be, they would have to be enough candle power to light the parking lots.
There is one light right there. You're correct. The other
And there's
There's
another,
one
right there
here, I think.
is a fire hydrant.
Yeah.
Oh, that's a fire
Hey,
hydrant,
look.
sorry, okay.
Lights
oh
here.
yeah, okay, there is slight difference in the symbol.
Mhm.
Have my mic on.
Mhm.
Here's a light down here, a light here,
Yeah.
a light here,
Right
a
there.
light here, a light here,
Okay, yeah, I just picked those out
yeah,
myself.
light
Okay.
here.
Are those there, do they have the benefit of a lighting plan?
There's supposed to be a landscape and lighting plan sheet somewhere.
Right, you mean a full photometric plan?
we understand what you're looking
Yeah, this will be included in the next go round of the updated plan. Okay. All right, I'm just relaying a comment that Mr. Kroll just made. Okay. The parking count underneath the buildings versus the open lots. Mr. Panico, do you have some concern about that?
I just wanted to make sure that we knew where it was without having to go back flipping through the architectural plans to find out how many spaces. You know, it wouldn't hurt to tack on how many spaces are in the basement.
Sure,
Yeah,
we
you
can,
know-
I can
How
add
how
that.
can we make a judgment as to the adequacy of the parking distribution? I mean, yes, the information is there somewhere, but you got to go search it out.
And the bottom left corner of the
So
SCIA plan is that parking analysis. But in that chart where it says residential, it says 250 spaces. So if that could
So
be
we can,
broken-
yeah, we can expand that to add a line for how many are covered within the garage level of the 3 condo buildings.
And on the
Yep.
site plan itself, where you annotate the different structures and the number of units, can you also just add another line that says X number of basement parking or something of that
Yeah,
sort?
sure.
Covered parking, whatever you will.
So right, Mr. Panico, right under where it says 6-story building, under that, put the number of parking
Yeah,
spaces under. Okay, just so we're clear where you want it to.
yeah, that's another one.
It's, I mean,
Can we-
again, I
Can we
understand,
go
but
to the other
it's
side
on
of building
the,
number 2.
yeah.
Okay.
Can you slide over just a little bit?
Wait a minute, okay, I'm sorry, you want building number
It's all right.
2?
Yes. Okay, okay, hold it right there. It seems to me the last go around, didn't we have a problem with a pump station in here? And there was some concern about the pump station being in a floodable area.
Mhm.
Do we not have the pump station anymore?
Oh, that's right. That was right on the point.
Remember we had that lengthy discussion?
Yeah,
We did,
you're absolutely right.
yeah.
It was somewhere
In fact,
in
there
that,
was a
around where
generator,
the bend in that retaining wall is.
there was a generator for that pump
And we were-
station.
Yeah. I think,
I
you
remember the
and Mr.
conversations, and I do know that that was taken under consideration,
And it was moved up.
and it's
So
been.
we don't have it
moved-
anymore?
No, it's been changed. At that time, prior to the auto swage acquisition, the
Yeah.
sewer main needed to cut up this, just the other side of, this easement, the Tenneco easement, and head up to River Road, and then it was gonna go down River Road as a gravity feed line all the way to the connection, down by, just past the condominiums where they're connected in is where we have to connect. Now, the new design for the sanitary system goes basically through the auto swage site, so we're not going onto the state highway any longer, so we don't have to do any of the easements or have any of the issues that we had with the gas lines going across, because we would have had to go across the Iroquois Gas Company at a relatively deep level. So now we're able to go surface, so the pump station, everything has been relocated and is not in the flood zone now. It should be shown on the engineering drawings. I think
Where will the pump station be?
Yeah, it's shown on the south side of the rowing club building, and the ground
Okay.
where it's shown is above the
Oh.
flood elevation.
All right, so
Hold
it's
on,
between the rowing club and the condos.
Let me get, oops, I gotta get to the right.
It's on
map.
the other sheet now.
Well, come on.
You want sheet 1?
Do you have a notation, Commissioner?
Says between-
Okay, while you gentlemen are looking for something, I just want to note for the record that Commissioner Ticky did leave at 7:05. He had indicated to leave before the meeting. So he, needed to do so.
Couldn't hear anything that was said. I'm sorry.
I was just noting for the record, Attorney Thomas, that Commissioner Ticky did leave the meeting at 7:05. He had indicated
Oh,
to me
okay.
he could not.
All right, I'm sorry, you sort of faded out. It's sort of,
Sorry. Okay.
Okay, here's the condo building.
So it's just south of the rowing club building, and on this plan, you'll only see a generator. On the utility and drainage plan, you would see the pump station right next to where the generator is.
Okay. But whatever
Is this it right
concerns the commission had at the other location would apply here also.
Yep, so it is out of the flood zone. It's above elevation. The pump station is on ground above elevation 14.
Okay.
So that's the square with
I
the
see
T in it?
generator.
Yeah, here, I can share my screen if you'd like, and I can show you
Yeah.
right where it is.
Yeah,
Is this it here on my screen where it says?
Yeah, on
generator?
that plan, that's the correct location, but the rest of the equipment is indicated on the utility plan on another sheet.
Oh, okay, I'll stop
But
sharing.
is that next to the generator, the pumping station, I guess,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
that's what he's showing us.
All right, so it's within that retaining
Okay,
wall.
there's the utilities now. Okay. All right, there's a pump station. All right.
Just zoom in.
It's not on this drawing. It's not on
It's
ours.
showing.
Why is it on his and not on ours?
This,
It's just different.
this is the engineering drawing.
Yeah,
Oh,
this is
right.
a later sheet in the plan set. So,
Anyway,
you know, we can't put everything on one sheet. It'll get too messy, so we split up. You know, grading, utilities usually on a separate sheet, that kind of thing.
Okay, so
Yeah.
you have a retaining wall that encompasses that area. Is that which direction is that retaining wall going? Where's the lower?
Um,
level?
Here,
There we go. Okay. And you're in 1650.
Yep.
Okay. Okay.
so, you know, grade is obviously high up here, and this retaining wall carves out a flat-ish space down here. But the ground, even though it's the low area in the area, is still a few feet above the flood elevation.
And that area is what, just for aesthetics or to accommodate?
It's for the pump station.
Okay.
Can I ask, I only noted or saw, unless I overlooked them, 2 EV charging stations. Are there more?
Two is correct. That's what we added on the auto swage side.
Okay, I see one in the lower lot and the other one was where? Somewhere,
There's one right here. So the idea was that these charging stations would serve 2 spaces. They'd have 2 connections.
oh, there it is. Mhm.
So you've got a station here for 2 spaces and a station here for 2 spaces.
Where
Okay.
will the other ones be for the tenants and, you know, the condominium and the other, and the
Presume they're
tenants?
probably in the basement parking, no?
But yes, I think Mr. Mingalello explained that they were down. They could be located down in the basement in the spaces. I think he said that were along the whatever exit or the area to the lobby, the elevator, I'm sorry.
Okay. So there will be a couple of one to service 2 cars in the basement of the condo building, the parking level of the condo building, rather.
That's correct.
So
Okay,
there'll be no
Yeah.
external.
no. So, and nothing is planned in that long span that parallels River Road?
That's correct.
Okay, was there any thought of putting in the wiring, but not in other areas, but not, putting in the actual pole where the cars get charged?
I think now that we're looking at the adding some islands that you're requesting, in that approved plan, that we would go back now and add something.
Add the
Yeah.
conduits anyhow.
Or over there that we could do something.
Yeah, at least, get it prepped for them.
We hadn't made any changes to what had been approved. We tried to keep it all in sync, but, you know, you've changed some of your standards since, so we'll accommodate.
Well, it's not just our standards, but
And these were, we understand.
the state is changing a lot of standards, so, you know.
Yeah.
What do you
Okay.
mean, what do you mean on the plans by potential viewing area? Is it part of the proposal or not?
Where are you on that, Mr. Panico?
Right there.
Oh, in the bottom left corner.
There's a couple of locations.
Yeah, so those are two locations with, you know, for eating lunch outside for people that work at the office building. And I guess the wording's not great, but maybe potentially on the cloudiness of the day, you get a good view of the river.
Another one.
What I'm saying is the applicant proposing to install those, or you're just saying it's a possibility somebody could put something in there?
We put them there when we submitted the plans to you for comment, because it was a general comment made by the commission early on that they were looking for some viewing areas along the river. So we highlighted these two as potential areas, looking for your input. If you're
Okay,
satisfied with those areas, we believe that they'd be safe. There's access to them. We put in the sidewalk as per the request early on. You can see there's a concrete walk now that goes down the middle of the lower parking area that accesses the viewing area closest to the river. And then the higher one up top would actually overlook the parking lot, but would have great views of the river as well. So we added that in when we made the adjustments to the top parking lot for the fire. And kind of make it a little nicer up there. We'd have a nice seating area and potentially, you know, just lunch area. Somebody can bring their lunch out there. So if the commission.
Are we going to anticipate a couple of public parking spaces down there? Or not?
The public parking spaces were farther up along, that we proposed, were farther up along the,
River Road?
farther up along towards the right of way, towards the street,
Okay,
somewhere up in that area.
Okay.
And then obviously the restaurant is public access. So we really don't need to dictate that it's public parking, because anybody from the public can park there and go to the restaurant or.
Right.
Sorry, so, you know, down where we have the condominiums in the apartments, it's a little bit more private. So those would be delineated on the other part of the site as we've done. So I think here, there's plenty of parking and public access and areas for people to sit, so it should work very well.
I'll ask only because it's come up at other proposals that have come before the commission. But the only amenity that I don't really see on here is a dog walking area. Is that anything that you had thought of? I'm not
We
being
never-
silly.
You know, in the public access we have, especially on the facility rent, I joked with the commission down there that at the time I was going through that application, they were also looking for a dog walking work in town. I said, well, you have one in Costco because they walk around my facility all the time. So what we've actually done is we put out 3 stands with the doggy bags.
Okay.
And we don't forbid the dogs. If that's something, you know, we ask that they be leashed.
I didn't know if for the residents, if this area past the paddle court was something that.
Well, we allow the walk all the way around the public
Yeah,
access. as
they
long as
can,
not-
yeah.
So,
Right.
we didn't think there needed to be anything specific here, but as I said,
Nothing
as a
fenced
courtesy and a cleanup maintenance item, we have
Yeah,
the bag dispensers in a
appreciated.
couple of locations around, just to make sure.
but there aren't any plans for like a
No dog walk,
walled in fenced in area.
nothing specific.
We
Okay.
haven't asked if they're gonna allow dogs at residents.
Yeah,
Yeah,
we're not gonna forbid them unless the commission says we need to.
No.
on the
Oh,
fences,
no.
so.
no, that's up to the landlord. So,
Are we gonna talk about affordable?
Yeah.
Tonight?
so we, as you know, we've completed our affordable housing plan for the city of Shelton. The Board of Aldermen has it to review and approve at its meeting in May, first meeting, I believe it is. And so like every other project, I know that we asked the applicant as to what affordable housing count there's gonna be. And I know at the beginning of my comments that at a prior meeting, Attorney Thomas said that there were no affordable housing units being planned. Is that the case still?
Yes, if I can explain again, as I explained before, This is not a new housing proposal. This is an existing housing proposal in which there were 102 units approved of apartments, of rental apartments. With respect to the rental apartments, we reduced the number of rental apartments from 102 to 90, from 3 buildings to 2 buildings, and then added the building for condominiums, higher end condominiums at a much larger space. I haven't, I don't know if the commission's confronted that, but that's the number one reason is this is a prior approved housing that we're reducing the number of apartments, although increasing the number of specific units because some of them are going to be condominiums. Second of all, in your discussions, you did refer to the fact of that the applicant can make a presentation concerning the extra costs that it has to do. In this case, there are substantial costs related to the establishment of the public walkway, the public access, and the extras with respect to the public access. In addition to that, I believe I presented that there was a rough estimate that the client still has about $250,000 worth of brownfields cleanup left. I mean, there was a substantial amount done, and Rick, you can correct me, Mr. Crawl, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but there was there's cleanup that will be supported, but the applicant has to do some of the or pay for some of the cleanups. So based on that, and based on the fact that the applicant came forward with it, I'm assuming when you're talking about affordable, you're talking about the apartments. So he reduced it. If the commission, and I, since it's been brought up, if the commission's intent is to make a demand of a percentage of affordable and a certain percentage, then as you were addressed in the River Road, the other River Road parcel, as to the economics of the situation, then the economics may require a redesign of the proposal, increasing, and I mean, I'm just in some discussions, possibly removing the condos, making the entire residential all apartments, and increasing the number to make it economically feasible. I hope that some of the presentations, and I hope that some of your research realizes that there is economics to this. It isn't like you can just give it up everything. That I know there was a plan, oh, you could just raise the rents, but that isn't, as was expressed to you in a prior thing, that isn't just simply the way it is, number one. Number two, when you look at the amount of site work that's involved in this, when you look at the amount of cleanup that's involved, that falls on the developer, and when you look at the amount of public improvements, so to speak, public access improvements, then to step in and say, even though you were approved for 102 and you're reducing to 90, we now I'm not sure what you're even talking about. Your affordable housing plan, as you discussed, is a plan. It is, and it is an advisory document. It's not a mandatory document in any fashion. So in addressing it and presenting it in this situation, we don't believe requiring affordable on these units is appropriate. If it is, we'd like to know, I'm assuming based on the comments that the commission has made, you're going to keep the public hearing open, but we'd like to have some idea before the public hearing closes so that the client can then address the issue as to potentially what changes need to be made to make it economically feasible.
Can I comment on it? All right,
Yeah.
all right, so,
This is Commissioner Amato.
I was just gonna say the public access, I'm thinking that's a couple parking places and the walkway, which is open to everybody, and that's part of your whole plan. So I really don't see the argument that that's adding to your expense. That would preclude having some affordable units. I don't know what our plan says. We've been asking 10% for in the downtown, but it would be 16 out of the 90.
Yep.
Okay. So I don't think we have any credibility with any other developer if we don't require
Mhm.
the affordable.
Yeah, I would have to say that, yes, this is a modification to a previous PDD.
That
However,
was then and this is now, right?
this is back on the
Yeah.
table. And,
Yeah.
if we are going to require conformity to the affordable housing plan, then everybody's got to share in it. It's, yes,
The other
as
thing, This is a
Attorney
very
Thomas.
big project. There are a lot of parts of this project that
Mhm,
we hope will be profitable for you, but it's not like
absolutely.
it's just an apartment building and we're asking for a whole lot of affordable apartments. As you look at the project overall, it's just a part of it. And I don't know how the numbers work out. That's.
Well,
we
if there
understand.
is compliance with the plan, then the plan is no longer a plan, it becomes a regulation. And
It's.
yeah, or at
that's-
least a de
not
facto regulation in the Cedar Village at the Locks at 121. My understanding is that if you were doing your math, then that should have been, I was listening to it, I believe it's only 10%, but that should have been whatever the 18% number should have been there for that. And it wasn't. So obviously there's some discretion. And I think that I with all due respect, Commissioner Motto, I think that the construction of the walkway and the site work that goes along with that, and the construction of the other areas open to the public for access to the river is a substantial public benefit and does cost.
It's required.
Does add to the thing. I mean, to say that it doesn't is to say that the extensions of the Riverwalk are relatively minuscule too.
Attorney Thomas, did you hear Commissioner Motto's last comment?
I'm saying,
No.
I think you're required to have public access to the river. Is that correct?
The public access, if the people can come and rent the boat, that's public access. Rent, get down to the, become a member of the boat club and, for a small fee and bring their boats down and access. I'm not sure the extent of it, and Mr. Crow can maybe do more, but and I think we just have to understand if what the commission is saying is that for the 90 apartments, you expect 16% of the apartments to be affordable at what percentage?
Mhm. Yeah, it's down there as 80% and 3 at 60%. Attorney Thomas, there is wiggle room. It's just the fact that the commission loses all credibility if we hopscotch over proposals and only.
You're not hopscotching over a proposal that has already been approved for the units long before you had a plan.
You changed
This
the
is
unit.
different. This is not apples to apples. That wouldn't be apples to apples. Understanding new proposals, and every client that comes to me with a new proposal to build apartments where there's not an approval for apartments, I tell them what to expect.
Attorney
This
Thomas,
is not
the change
new
in the
proposal.
number of residential units. It states it on the agenda and there hasn't been any question about that.
It reduced the number of apartments.
Yeah, but it added,
But it added the condos. That's residential.
that's where
Well,
the change
and
is.
that is a question that is your plan applying to all condo proposals? Now, in other words, any condo proposals that come before the commission, are you at that point going to also use the plan to request affordable condo units?
No, I don't believe so. We've already
Oh, okay.
segmented this as a
I think we're all
high
playing with
density
words at this
residential
point.
rental. So Commissioner
Okay.
Kelly? Yes.
I think we're all playing with words right now.
Yeah, it could
Could
be
I
a
say
plan
something?
words.
Sure.
Sure, Commissioner.
Donato,
Uh-huh.
this is transformative. This is an upscale project. I understand that, and a lot of work is going into it. But it has to be for people who work in this town to live here. You can tell me the economics about it, that you can't afford to give a few affordable units, pass it over to the higher end. upscale condos. Don't take it out on the working people. There's a crisis of housing across this country. Every city is facing it, and we better face it and face it soon in this city. Otherwise, we're gonna be in big trouble. I can't accept the fact that with all that I see here, I see boathouses, I see all this wharf here, I see condos, upscale condos, powerful, that you can't give a few affordable working class people a spot in this development. I find that unacceptable.
Thank you.
I'm sorry.
No, that's okay.
Well, I want to agree with Commissioner Dow about the fact that there is a tremendous housing crisis. And whenever proposals come before you and there's a discussion of reducing density for things, I think I would remind you of that also. I'm just talking about this project in specific, but I think it's important that the client know. The client may be able to come back to you with a proposal that is economically feasible, that provides an adequate amount of, given the circumstances, an adequate amount of affordable units. And the client, in order to do that, has got to know what is being proposed, because all the clients, all the developers need to run the numbers. You heard the presentation, you know, so it's, again, granted, you said flexibility and you said consistency, and I agree with that. But like I was saying, the word you're talking about 90 units here, and you're talking about 16%. There was 120 units, and it was 10%. So, if the indication is, if the commission looks at this and says, based on the things that have been presented, we would be looking at the apartments, and we would be looking at 10% of the apartments to be affordable, then the client can take a look at it and possibly redesign the project to increase the number of apartments, and therefore be able to satisfy the housing shortage. In addition to that, provide affordable units at an appropriate rate. In many towns, the different towns have different voluntary set-asides numbers, whether it's 5%, 10%. Some towns have 15%, it depends, and 20% usually are in extremely high density projects, high number projects. So most towns prefer the voluntary set-asides for a specific reason. You have more control over it. It is more of a give and take between the developer and the commission, as opposed to a situation where it is the balance gets tipped if it's not the voluntary set aside. So
Yeah, I know there's a balancing act, Attorney Thomas. It's just, it has to be addressed. And it. we
okay,
would
well, I mean,
appreciate
and then I will certainly address with my client, but it is what
Thank you.
we're hearing
it.
that you're looking at, basically following your chart in this case, not considering
Yes.
any of the other factors, balancing, and you're looking for, I think the number that I heard mentioned was 16%, which at 90 would be 15, 14, whatever,
13 and a half, 14.
13 and a half,
14
14 units.
Yeah, it's 14.4. Okay, so you will discuss that and get back to us. Is there anything else from any of your team members that needs to come before us?
Well, not at this point. I would assume, based on everything you've done in this, that we have to come back to you, that the hearing is going to be continued.
But I just didn't know if you had any other items to discuss with us.
Not related to addressing the issues.
Okay, Mr. Crowell, do you have any?
Nothing specific, other than I do appreciate what the commission is facing with the housing situation, but I will say that since the beginning of the design of this back in 2016, 17, when we first came here, in looking at what has been designed and what is currently there, the size of the units and everything that's put in place, it was designed and for, came in a higher end buyer, if you will, a more professional end buyer. And that's what had been designed here. You know, the 2-bedroom units are 1,800 square feet. A standard 2-bedroom unit is closer to 1,100 or 1,200 square feet. So, you know, that is going to have to now be taken into consideration if you're going to be requesting us to go back. You know, every unit has a front water view and access is from the backside. That may have to change. I mean, in order to incorporate different uses, I know that there's the regulations with affordability that you can't specify the units within the
Right.
building, but those units have to be designed to a point where that affordability factor does meet the economics of what's going on in the overall building. So, you know, you can't justify an 1,800 square foot dwelling at an affordable housing market rate when you're trying to upgrade on others. It just does not work.
Yep.
It's a business situation that nobody's going to get involved in. So this is going to take some serious consideration, and we'll take some serious redesigning on those buildings, just so that everybody's aware. And I will take a look at it, seriously consider it,
Yeah,
and we'll have to come back to you with it.
yeah.
We appreciate you.
As I mentioned, we've got to be consistent with every,
You understand though,
Application.
they can't be distinguishable.
yeah.
That's what I say, and that's, you know,
Yeah.
like I said, that's the side door. You
I
can't
mean,
have a
if you
separate
had-
entrance for it.
If you had a range of apartment types, they could be proportional, you know what I'm saying? So it wouldn't be like all of your high-end apartments would be.
I understand that, and I think it might go back to one of our original designs where we had apartments on the front side of the building and the riverside. And then we changed that and came back. Just in closing, my last personal question, if they were all condos and no rentals, does that have any difference with the commission?
You know, we haven't really figured that out, right?
I think I had presented that
Yeah, we don't have
to
any.
Corporation
What's that?
Council
We don't have.
In terms of,
as to, and
How that's-
it's supposedly it was only rental apartments.
I'm
That,
sorry.
that would apply
I
to,
don't know how,
and that's what that's why I said, what's the
Just
difference? It's a
apartments, yeah.
resident. The residential, whether it's completely owned or not, but we can definitely, ask for clarification on that, for sure. So,
I think it's, given the comments of the mayor a year ago in June when you imposed it, I would certainly be very clear with him on the plan that's being addressed by the Board of Aldermen as to whether or not it does or does not apply to condominiums.
right, exactly. Okay, so, there's nothing left, Attorney Thomas. I'd like to move into the public portion. Okay, so, is there anyone in the auditorium that would like to comment on anything that's new that was presented this evening, and that includes the March 30th letter from the Iroquois right-of-way manager? Okay, there's no one indicating anyone here in the auditorium. Ms. Castro, is there anyone participating via Zoom that would like to comment?
I have added in Spencer Robinson.
Okay, all right, Mr. Robinson, please identify yourself for the record. He's a participant, he's on. Okay,
You have to unmute yourself.
Mr. Robinson, make sure you're not on mute.
Excuse me.
Go
How's
ahead.
that?
Yes, we can hear you.
Good
Just
evening.
identify yourself for the record.
Good evening. Again, my name is Spencer Robinson. I'm the right-of-way manager with Iroquois Gas. I've been with the company 32 years now. Served as a right-of-way manager for the last 20. I'm also the author of the letter expressing our concerns about the project.
Mhm.
So I thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak. As the applicant mentioned, I have spoken with the applicant in the past. I look forward to working through these issues and concerns with him. We would be most helpful for the gas company to get copies of the plans in advance of the meeting so that we would have a chance to adequately review the plans. Just looking at the plans that are up on the town's website currently, they're kind of hard for me to read on the screen. I would appreciate some paper copies, but The easement issue, as far as the width of the easement, has been revised, and I agree with that revision of the easement there. However, there's other concerns we have, including, I'm just glancing at the grading plan, just as an example, and I don't really want to get into a review of this because I'm not an engineer. I'm not the person that would review this, but just based on my experience, I do see some things jump out at me. The grading, as an example, is proposing, the best I can tell, about a 10-foot cut or reduction in grade over the paddleball courts or the pickleball, whatever, the courts that are proposed behind the buildings out towards the highway. I don't know if that's going to be feasible. I don't know, without doing some more review, and it may involve requiring some test pits to be done to make sure that we have enough depth of the pipeline there to make a cut such as that. That's as an example. I see that there's grading proposed out in the state highway right of way, and grading through our site where we have the connections and the valving in the above ground pipes and what have you along Route 110 there, that may not be feasible to do. So my concern is that we kind of have to work in parallel on this to make sure what's being proposed can be built, and that there's not such a great amount of changes required that would force the developer to maybe be coming back to the town as well as to Iroquois.
That's why we're doing it now.
So those, and just briefly, Iroquois, we want to be involved. We will work with the city. We'll work with the developer as we have in the past, and we want to make sure that, number one, for public safety, that this is done in a way that is safe, and also it doesn't encroach upon our easement rights, whether they're with the underlying landowner or the state easement, where we have a right of way, a license, I guess is what you would call it, with the state, to have our pipeline that runs down the edge of Route 110 from this site south down to it crosses the bridge at the end of town and winds up at the north end of Sikorsky Airport. That's another 12 natural gas pipeline. So those are reasons we voiced our concerns, and we want to have these addressed and have a chance to adequate time to review the changes in the plans, so that we can report correctly to the town and to the developer as to what they can do and can't do in regards to our easement.
Okay.
I have a question for Mr. Robinson.
Commissioner Kelly has a question for you.
What do you term adequate time?
A couple of weeks at a minimum. We've got to line up our engineer. He's got to have time to look over the plans, some time for maybe questions back to the applicant, those types of things.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I can't imagine that this would be on an agenda until the middle of next month at the earliest.
But what I'm saying is receiving the plans the day before the public hearing or the meeting is not. There's no way that we can mobilize and get a review that quickly.
Yeah, we understand. We understand. Anything else, Mr. Spencer? Mr. Robinson?
No, I just, thank you for allowing me to speak at the public hearing. And, again, I look forward to working with the city and the developer to these different concerns we have.
Okay, thank you very much. Ms. Castro, anybody else participating via Zoom? that wants to comment? Okay, is there anybody participating through phone? Okay, so last call, anybody participating through Zoom or phone would like to comment on this, please use Zoom's raise your hand feature or dial *9 to be identified. Okay, Attorney Thomas, do you have any response to Mr. Robinson at this time?
The only response I have, I know my client wants to work closely with Iroquois. I've done this for 40 years and I've never been in a situation where approval of a utilities action is simultaneously with the zoning approval. I'm being very honest with you. It's not that, certainly the applicant must comply with all the requirements of the easement, all the requirements of the construction, all the requirements of any regulations or rules or other things that apply to the construction of the easement. I have never been involved in a situation. We'd be glad to consult with him. We're glad to do with him, but the detail of, I mean, again, as Mr. Robinson appropriately said, he's not an engineer. He implied he was going to have the plans reviewed by an engineer. But, and that would be something, again, as I explained, and I think Robinson alluded to, it's at the developer's risk when he goes forward without consulting with the utility company. But that's something I caution. We will be glad to work with them. I'm sure my client's going to work with them. We would be glad to supply the plans. I mean, the plans, other than the movement of the building off of the easement, the plans have been uploaded onto the Google Drive since the middle of March. And certainly we will include Mr. Robinson in the delivery when full-size sets are sent out, you know, to be accommodating. But I don't think there is a parallel approval processes that are appropriate. In other words, certainly consultation is, and we will do that.
Okay.
What the commission is looking for is to make sure that there's no major conflicts that could potentially affect your planning proposal and need to be addressed now. If you want to run the risk that this comes up later and causes you to have major changes, then those major changes are going to come back for another public hearing. So,
and the biggest problem was the building in the wrong place. That was a serious issue.
well, I think
As far as these other
the
issues,
point that Mr. Robinson just mentioned, though, about the excessive cut needed to create those courts, the Powerball courts, that's a major determination.
Right. My suggestion would be a less of a cut and put a golf driving range up there, but I don't think I would get that.
I think the other thing, which is not necessarily shown in our plans yet, but are those cuts, do they potentially have any impact on the facility that the gas company has in place in the right of way of 110? Well, that's what I'm saying. Those are the questions, the major questions. We're not worried about the little nuts and bolts. You guys can work that out.
Right. Yeah, those questions I'm sure are easily discernible by looking at the plans.
Okay.
Let's just end it here. We agreed to do a cut sheet. We'll show everybody what it is. We've had this approved before. We've talked to the gas companies, both of them in the past. We did have prior approvals. So we will move forward and make sure that they were all taken care of. I have had conversations with Mr. Robinson. I had explained to him that once we got, you know, a more formal approval from the Planning and Zoning Commission, we would bring back to them to work out further details. We understand legally what is required of the easement. We lived with it for 20 years. We know what it is. I actually was part of the parcel of the sale of the extension of the easement. So I'm very familiar with the documents and the people involved. We'll make it happen and it'll all be worked out. So thank you and Have a good evening.
Thank you. Okay. All right, well, we all know for sure that this is a large and complex project. It has multiple buildings, it has different uses. But there is a number of pieces of information that we need to still come back to the commission. So as we move forward, is there a motion from the commission to continue the public hearing?
Yes, I'll make that.
All right, there's a motion from Commissioner Kelly to continue the public hearing for application 2228. Is there a second?
I'll second it, Commissioner Laskos.
Did the sound get lost?
No. Commissioner Lasko, so you,
Can't hear you.
I keep losing sound
Yeah,
also.
so do we. Where are you?
I could hear Mr. Panico.
I can hear you all too. We just can't hear
No.
Denny. Chairman Harger.
it's, I'm on. So Commissioner Lasko, so I'm doing the roll call on your vote to continue the public hearing.
Aye.
Thank you. All right. Commissioner Tiki is not back with us, is he? No, he's not. So he's not voting, and the chair votes aye. So the motion to continue has passed with a vote of 5-0. Okay, so this will be on the agenda of an upcoming meeting, probably in about a month at the end. Okay.
Thank you.
Very good.
Yeah.
All right, so next under other business is approval of minutes. First one is for March 8th. I don't believe I had any. Does anybody have any changes or corrections? Okay. Okay, so there's no comments or corrections on March 8th. Is there a motion to approve as submitted? So that's from Commissioner Kelly,
No second.
and there's a second from Commissioner Romano. So on the motion to approve the March 8th minutes as submitted, made by Commissioner Kelly and seconded by Commissioner Motto. Commissioner Kelly,
Aye.
Commissioner Motto,
Aye.
Commissioner Donato,
Aye.
Commissioner Laskos.
Abstain. I was absent.
Okay, and the chair votes aye. Motion has passed with a vote of 5-0-1. For March 16th, any, I'm sorry,
3.
401.
1, 2, 3, sorry, 4-0-1. Okay, thank you. Okay, so for the March 16th minutes, any comments or corrections? I had one on the very last section, minutes for approval for February 8th, 2023. It read, Chair Harger expressed she would like staff to look into having the minutes posted online. When I went back and listened, I think it was more along the line of Chair Harger expressed she would like staff to follow up on the minutes not being posted online. Okay. So any other comments on March 15th?
Fine to me, and I didn't catch that.
Okay, is there a motion to, on these minutes for March 16th
I make a motion to approve.
as changed?
Yes.
Okay, with the changes. So there's a motion from Commissioner Motto to approve with the changes. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, so there's a second from Commissioner Donato.
Yes.
Okay, so on the motion to approve, Commissioner Kelly,
Aye.
Commissioner Laskos.
Abstain. I was absent.
Abstain. Commissioner Motto, Commissioner Donato. Chair votes aye, and the minutes have been approved by vote of 4-0-1. And how about March 29th? Anything?
I'd like to make a motion to approve.
Thank you, Commissioner Laskos. Motion to approve from Commissioner Laskos. Is there a second?
Second.
And that's approved as submitted, right?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Okay, second from Commissioner Mata? Stay here.
Charlie.
Commissioner Kelly, okay? So then motion to approve as submitted. Commissioner Mata?
Aye.
Commissioner Donato?
Aye.
Commissioner Kelly?
Aye.
Commissioner Lascos?
Aye.
And chair votes aye, motion is passed by a vote of 5-0. Okay, seeing that there's no other item on the agenda, the chair declares this evening's meeting adjourned as of 8:17 PM. Thank you, everyone, and good night.
Good night.